Good morning, comrades. You're listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This is your weekly Good Morning Comrade. And this is going to be in addition to our series. We recently had Bob Morell on to talk about his City Council District 8 race. We have another guest who's also running for City Council at large. Was it one or was it two? I can't remember.
It's Division 2.
Division 2.
Yes, sir.
We have Pastor Gregory Manning. Welcome to the show, Pastor Manning. How you doing today?
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's not so bad. So I guess just to sort of kick us off, introduce yourself to our audience and just sort of talk about yourself, and we can get into the campaign in just a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me. I am Pastor Gregory Manning. As you said, Jeff, I have been a pastor for 25 years. Known I was going to be a pastor since I was 4 years old. Been a pastor.
Made up your mind early.
Yeah, exactly. That's never changed. Good to have consistency, right?
Right.
So I have been the pastor of Broadmoor Community Church in the famous and historic neighborhood of Broadmoor Community for now 15 years. I am a community activist. I am a civil rights activist. I am a community organizer. Most of all, I'm a servant leader, and I am delving into this world of navigating politics because I just feel that this is just a critical time. We're just seeing some just crises that are converging on people right now that are really going to have some tremendous impacts on people. And unless we get the right people in place, we're going to see people really suffer. And I can't stand to just sit back and say I did nothing in this historic moment.
Oh, yeah, it's a really critical moment. Would you like to tell us a bit about some of that history of civil rights advocacy and activism that you mentioned just a moment ago?
Yeah. You know, first of all, I just really believe that the new civil rights movement is connected so much to climate change and the right that everybody has to have clean air, clean soil, and clean water. And so therefore I've done a lot of activism work, civil rights work with communities in frontline, fence line areas up and down the river, particularly in St. John and St. James parishes, you know, where all those petrochemical industries are.
Oh yeah, Cancer Alley.
Cancer Alley, where people are considered, Jeff, to be sacrificial. They literally call it sacrifice zones. So I have marched. I've done a march between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And at the end of the march from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, I actually got arrested and was put in jail in the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison, strip searched and held down by 4 police officers, then strip searched, put in jail. Learned a lot from that experience.
Bad times, but I mean, you do it for a good reason.
Absolutely.
And I really do want to hammer in on the specifically Louisiana piece, because Louisiana is at the forefront of a lot of the it's funny, we commit some of the worst crimes in terms of extraction of and production of, you know, chemicals and greenhouse gases and stuff like that. And also we're first on the dinner menu, I guess you could say, when it comes to the impact of climate change. And it's really this awful paradox. It's almost just like you're, you know, sawing your own, you know, body parts and selling it for parts.
Absolutely. We know what's killing us, but yet we don't want to do anything about it. We know we want New Orleans and Louisiana to be able to remain here, but yet we continue to do the same things that are absolutely killing our whole state. Basically.
Yeah. And in addition to that as well, I mean, you know, I don't have to tell you, but just for the benefit of our audience, I mean, on the social and economic justice piece of the climate justice, the people who are primarily impacted are poor and low income folks who can, I mean, are very often correlated, I should say, with racial identities and ethnic groups
Right. We can't get beyond the fact that, especially in the river parishes, we see areas that were former plantations now that have become plants. And while people were being killed slowly on plantations, they're now also still are being subjected to the same systemic and systematic taking of their lives that they were before. And it's people who should remain in those communities because they inherited those homes from their enslaved ancestors. So they deserve more than anybody. And we need to protect those communities more than anything.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I guess just let's talk about your campaign. You said why you were doing it. You say what you're fighting for. Let's talk about the issues. What are some of the things that you're kind of putting forward as your platform for this campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you for that. Again, I'm not a career politician. I ran for one other office, Jeff. I ran for Public Service Commission, which was several years ago. There were two progressives in the race. We were also fighting against an incumbent, trying to get an incumbent who had been had held that position for 17 years, I believe, and really had not done much in order to help the people, but really was lining his own pockets. And so me and the other progressive went after him, and everybody considered our platforms, the progressive and I, that they were identical, and we knew whoever went to the runoff was going to win, and that's what happened. The other progressive.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
No, it's much different.
I'm sorry, Pastor. You dropped out for about 5-10 seconds. Can you repeat what you said? I beg your pardon.
Yeah. So two progressives in the race. And at the end of the day, we knew, because the other progressive, Devontae Lewis, who's now the Public Service Commissioner, we knew, because our platforms were identical, and everybody, knew that whoever went to the runoff would win, because a lot of money would pour in. And so he ended up beating me by 1,800 votes and went to the runoff and won. We were happy because it got out that incumbent. Again, somebody who was a career politician, was not working in the best interest of the people. So,
yeah. I beg your pardon. Go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that really kind of, obviously this is not exactly the same kind of situation, but it is sort of reminds me of what we just saw in New York City with Brad Lander and Zoran Mamdani in New York, where they sort of had this campaign where they definitely had identified that, we need to make sure that we knock out these career politicians, the establishment folks. And so there was a sort of like working, not necessarily entirely together, but working hand in glove on their shared values, their shared perspectives, and their shared goals. And that ended up working out for both of them. And that's something that is hopefully, it has been rare in the past for people who are in politics to act in that sort of coordinated, concerted way. That is very, very, in my opinion, unselfish. And I'm really happy to see that this is, something that you did as well before they even did it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good feeling, because when you have somebody that is that entrenched as a career politician, and there's a lot of family ties, there's a lot of old money, old political regimes and powers that are supporting that incumbent. To see that it can be done is really exhilarating, and just creates a lot of hopefulness that if it was done once, it can be done again. So that's where we are right now again. So I'm running against an incumbent who's from a political family, a career politician. All told, the length of his political career thus far has been about 18 years between his time in the legislature and his time on the council, but has really just immersed himself in his connections with corporations that are not helping us as a community. So I'm saying that this campaign here is about putting the people back at City Hall. I've said that from the very beginning. We got to put the people back in power at City Hall, and not career politicians who are not helping us. So yeah,
absolutely. And some of the ways that you're going to do that are outlined in your platform, and maybe we can get into that a little bit further. But it says right here that I guess describe your platform. Tell me about it.
Absolutely. So I jumped in this race because the cost of living is a real crisis. And that crisis has led to 20,000 people leaving the city of New Orleans between 2020 and 2023. 20,000 people. So it's a ton, and it's unsustainable. I'm a pastor, and we look at trends all the time. We have whole conferences that study the trends of how people are attending church these days and joining churches, and how, like Europe, we're seeing a stark decline. Now, that's relevant to us and what we're seeing. We cannot continue to be viable as a city if we see 20,000 people leaving. And so we got to get to root causes. Why are people leaving? They're leaving for three main reasons. Utilities are unaffordable. Housing is unaffordable because of taxes, because of the cost of insurance now. And we have a crumbling infrastructure that also has to deal with many other issues, but also climate change. Mm-hmm. And while people tell me all the time, Pastor, I love New Orleans. I love New Orleans. Anybody who's lived here, Jeff.
Greatest city in the world.
Greatest city in the world. No city can compare. I've been all over the world, and there's no other place like New Orleans. But it's lovable, but it's not so livable. So people are, just having to make that hard choice. Do I move across the lake? Do I move across the river? Do I move outside of the state, somewhere where I can support my family and we can live in have a much better quality of life than what we do here. So that's what I want to tackle is let's stop the hemorrhaging of people from our city. And here's the bottom line, Jeff. If I don't think what I've seen from the city council, they got those same numbers, but yet in terms of 20,000 people leaving the city. However, there was not any study put in place. There was not a task force put in place. There was no emergency declared. If I would have seen that, I would have said, let's figure out how we stop this. Mm-hmm. And they told us nothing about it. And they developed no plan to stop it. And that's what we do in the city. I'm afraid that we are oriented so that we respond to crises. We're not proactive enough. We wait for the crisis to come and then we respond. And I don't want to see that happen any longer. People die when all we do is respond to crises.
Yeah, let me ask you something sort of related to that, because it does really seem, I feel like it's a little bit indisputable that when the city council makes decisions on these kinds of things, they do so in the interest not so much of the people that live here, but they sort of like make their decisions primarily in terms of one, businesses, and then two, also the industry of tourism, which is totally not interconnected and related. And mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't want to be somebody that's like, oh no, we shouldn't be focusing on tourism or whatever in the city, but I mean, this, like we mentioned just a moment ago, it's the greatest city in the world. We have some of the most incredible culture, right. Some of the best food, music, whatever, all that stuff. And, people are going to come to New Orleans. Like, we don't need to be spending all of this money on focusing on that or subsidizing, businesses or, beefing up the police or all these other things that would essentially, that doesn't help the people that actually do live here. And that's really the thing that drives me kind of crazy, is that you see this prioritization of tourism mm-hmm. over the people that do live here, when obviously both are important, but you cannot have the tourism piece without the people that live here. That's the soul of the city.
You are 100% right, and that's what I continue to say is, hey, people who visit New Orleans know that New Orleans has got some nicknames, right? We're the Crescent City. We're the Big Easy. And I say the Big Easy is easy for tourists that come here, spend their money, drink a little bit, have a great time on Bourbon Street, then they take their money and they go home. It's not so easy for the people that live here every day. And I think what we're missing and fail to understand, those who are so bent towards tourism, and we would be nothing without our tourism industry. However, it is the unique people that built this city, that work in our hospitality industry, that work in as our culture bearers, that make this city what it is. And if we drive them out and displace them and not give them safe, affordable housing and utilities that are affordable, New Orleans will cease to be the unique city that it is. We cannot be New Orleans without the people that make New Orleans New Orleans.
Yeah, it's literally focusing on it backwards. If you want New Orleans to stay an amazing, best city in the world, like we say, we need to focus on the people that are here, and all that other stuff, all this subsidizing of the businesses and the police, that is not going to do it. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
It's about the people that are here and the people that live here and the people that make the city what it already is.
That's right. That's right. One of the here's an example. When I first moved here 15 years ago, I noticed a shift in terms of how people talk to each other. So I'm originally from the Midwest, left the Midwest when I was 26, moved to Kansas City, then moved here. And this is my home. I love here. I don't plan on going anywhere else. But when I moved here, I noticed that people talk to each other more here than what we did in the Midwest. They say, good morning. Right. Good evening. How you doing? And we didn't do all that. And so, but I began to pick up that culture and that way of doing things. And then I noticed in my neighborhood, which was the Ferret neighborhood at that time, that transient people weren't doing that. They walk down the street and they wouldn't speak to you. So I wrote a piece on what's called neighborhood, or I forget what, next door. I wrote a piece on next door, and the piece said, "Saying hello won't get you shot."
In fact, it's quite the opposite. I mean, like honestly, like I don't know. Let's get into this for a second. I do kind of think that just like talking to people in community and that kind of thing is it actually builds a relationship with the people around you, and it builds an atmosphere that is much more much less guarded, I guess you could say. And it's just like good vibes, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
Right. It leads to less fear and less distrust when you build community and talk to people. We're missing that. I think has caused the unraveling of our community and society because we stopped talking to each other.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there are people coming into the city. Like there is a very serious gentrification problem that's been taking place in New Orleans obviously since before Hurricane Katrina, but definitely since. And when it comes to the housing policy in the city, that's a huge part of it. Do you want to talk about your housing policy plan?
Yeah, absolutely. We need about 40,000 units of, I don't only want to say affordable housing, but that word safe has to be the description of it too. Safe, affordable housing for people. And so, how do we create that? We created, number one, by getting some of these blighted, vacant lots back into commerce again. So what I want to do is create a vacancy tax. What has caused gentrification a lot of times is the fact that people are holding on to these homes or these lots, and they're trying to get them to a place where they appreciate and they can make a whole lot more money on them. And we can't allow them to do that. We need development here. We need people in housing here. And so there'll be a vacancy tax on these places in order to finally get them back onto the market. Secondly, one of the great models of what to do with some of our schools that have been closed down is the TEP Center. And the TEP Center has housing for 55 and older folks, and it has a museum at the bottom to remember the great work of those young girls that integrated that school. But my point is, we have school buildings owned by our city, but owned by the school board, that are still sitting there. They tried to auction off, Jeff, but they couldn't auction off. So let's figure out how to buy those schools, convert those to affordable housing too. And then finally, we've got, before I began to run for office, I took a 4.5-hour tour of the city, went all around. I wanted to see everywhere. And one of the things it was quite interesting, quite revealing. One of the things I saw were many plots of land that were fenced off, just sitting there, owned by the city, that could, and the question, and I beg the question of, why are we fencing off this property? Who are we keeping it from? Let's take the fences down and build affordable housing on this land owned by Nora, owned by Hanno, owned by the city, owned by the school board. Let's build, let's develop.
Yeah. Public housing. I mean, like let's get that. Let's get it so that people can live in the city affordably. Right. Just so that you don't have to be you don't have to be middle class to live here. You need to be able to. We don't need people that work in the city to be driving in from St. Bernard Parish, where I'm from, or Jefferson Parish, where for many years, or the North Shore, or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, nothing against those folks, but we need people that work in the city. They need to be able to afford to live there.
That's right. That's right. And right now they absolutely can. I don't know how people do it. I mean, and thinking on what also makes that burden even harder is utilities. They not only have to be able to afford to live in the house, they need to be able to afford the utilities as well too. And right now we see sewage and water board that is not managed well, that the people are still getting extreme bills. I hear that every day. Our people's Entergy New Orleans bill is extremely high, and now we have a new utility called Delta Gas in the city of New Orleans. Yeah.
And Entergy, you have an entire plank as well on utility bills. I mean, Entergy, wow, what a bunch of cartoon villains they are. I mean, they have essentially a monopoly in the state. They're guaranteed, what was it, 9% profits or something like that.
Yes.
And you still get, fair weather, daytime blackouts in the city for nothing. Let's talk about your utility plank.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that whole reliability issue. As I always say, our power goes out when a squirrel walks across the line. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and it's because Entergy has deferred maintenance on their infrastructure, which should not be the case. They want to put that back on us. But here's what I want people to understand is that we are at a place where we have not recovered fully from the pandemic. While we would like to think that we have going back to tourism just for a minute, we would like to think that we have the same number of tourists coming into the city, that our festivals are frequented and have people coming to them as much as it was pre-pandemic. That's not the case. We have a lot of people who are still in recovery mode, and businesses are in recovery mode from the pandemic. Some of those people are people that were in a way blessed because Entergy New Orleans said they were going to give a moratorium on paying your bill during the pandemic, right? Nobody has any money. You don't have to pay your bill. Jeff, those bills didn't go away. They racked up. they racked up.
How nice of Entergy to be like, yeah, you could just pay us way more money later.
Right, exactly. You will be indebted to us, and we're coming.
You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. So they can look back at their rolls and say, all these people still owe us. That's money in the bank. However, these are people are they're innovative. And I know, I work with a lot of people who have to figure out how they can get their lights on in somebody else's name or rig something up. They got to have power because they have to feed their families. They have to live.
Mm-hmm.
But we cannot simply overlook that fact that people have a debt to Entergy. And I don't want to see people with that debt anymore. So as a true regulator of Entergy, and that's what it takes, somebody on council that truly wants to regulate Entergy. And I want your listeners to understand that, Jeff. I think you do, that we're the one of only two cities that have true regulatory power and authority over our utility, us and Washington, D.C. But unless we use it, it does no good. So we tell Entergy what to do, not the other way around. Entergy does not tell the council what to do, but it's been far too long that it has been that way. That council just defers to whatever Entergy wants.
Yeah, you let them get away with murder enough times, they get used to getting away with murder. I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah. And it's because of the fact that they want to make a profit. Entergy's whole bottom line is we want to make a profit. So my goal is to put people before profit. And the way to do that is to mandate that Entergy would wipe out all this debt. Let's give people a fresh start. Let's get them to a place where that's not hanging over them anymore. Let's wipe out that debt, and then let's end cutoffs. Let's ban all cutoffs that people are having to go through in the heat when they need it the most, or when it's cool outside and they need to keep their families warm. And I'm going to say that there will be no rate raises from Delta. We're not going to allow Delta to increase the rates for anybody. That's ultimately what they want to do, but we have to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that caught my eye also when I was looking through this plank was community solar. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's something that's not only sort of takes a little bit of power out of the hands of of Entergy, but it puts the power in the hands of regular people. Yeah, that's something that's really appealing to me.
Yeah, and regular people, including people that rent. It's going to become harder, and it is harder now because all the federal cuts that we see, that people are going to have a harder time being able to afford getting solar panels on their homes. One of the things that we want to make sure of is that we have more solar farms, so that people can buy a subscription to that solar farm, get a reduction on their bill. Also, too, we have now microgrids, which means my church was the first community lighthouse in our community. It was the first ribbon that was cut to be a community lighthouse. We organized with Together New Orleans to be able to do that. And what that means is we have solar panels and we have batteries to back up the solar power on our church. We now have, I think, 24 community lighthouses. Those solar panels and mainly those batteries can be tapped into to make what's called a virtual power plant. This can relieve people from their high utility bills, and it's a phenomenal plan. However, Entergy is dragging their feet and wanting to do that and presenting a roadblock every step of the way because they don't want to see it done.
It messes with their bottom line.
Absolutely. But our city council must demand it. Again, going back to climate change, we have to do all we can to break free from fossil fuels and more gas plants being built.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like when you described that to me, I was just like, wow, that's amazing. Like, that's really cool that you have this like community center that's also, like you said, able to sort of literally power the community. And like, I don't know, when it comes to like framing, if you describe that to somebody, it'd be like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah. And then you just say, yeah, Energy is stopping it. Just like, wow, like what a bunch of jerks, like cartoon villain stuff,
Yeah.
like they'll plant actors in city council to prevent that from happening or whatever too.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, Jeff. When you brought it up, I was just about to bring it up because I don't want anybody to ever forget that.
Never
forget. I will bring it up every single time that Entergy literally paid actors to come and show up when I was part of a coalition that was fighting the gas plant in the East. The Entergy was paying people to come, and they said that we'll pay you $125. We'll buy you a nice steak dinner, and we'll give you a T-shirt, and we'll give you a script to read to say that you're in favor of the gas plant. I was the first person to realize that happened because I was holding a rally in a church, and a man named Andrew came up. He said, "Pastor, I want to speak. I've got something to say, and I wasn't going to say this, but I need to say it." And I gave him the mic, and he told us about the astroturfing at that time. So we will never forget.
It's so like, if it wasn't so evil, I would be hilarious. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just one of those
Right.
Where it's just like, man, that is fiction could never do that. You could never have like a show like The Office or like Parks and Rec or anything like that. And they do that. It's like, come on, get out of here.
Yeah.
It's too silly.
It's crazy. Then wait to add more insult to the whole thing. Entergy was fined, I think, something like $5 million, and the people didn't see that money. I don't know where it went. I really don't. I would have to dig into it, but I know it didn't go back to the people of New Orleans in terms of being put into a pot where they can pay for their bills, which I believe it should have gone to, and so that's a problem too. We slap Entergy on the hand and don't really use an iron fist like we should with them.
Yeah, the velvet glove is to yeah. We're being too nice to them. Sure.
Yeah, we are.
Let's pause for station ID real quick. This is WHIVLP New Orleans. Good morning, comrade. We have Pastor Gregory Manning on the show. We're talking about his campaign for city council. He is running for at-large Division 2. Did I get that right?
Yep, at-large Division 2, citywide.
Division 2, citywide. So, yes. And we were talking a little bit about his campaign. We were just moving on from utilities, and let's talk about infrastructure. That's something that's, long been an issue, and it's not just potholes. There's a lot of infrastructure issues in the city. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I think I like to think of infrastructure in a couple of ways. Not only infrastructure as it pertains to, as you said, our broken streets, our potholes, our constant construction that we see going on that seems like a road gets fixed and it's been under construction and we all rejoice because it's smooth now, and then 2 weeks later it's torn up by some other entity or department within our government.
Franklin Avenue comes to mind, and St. Bernard Avenue, just like always. St. Bernard Avenue was awesome because it always had these giant, it looked like craters in the earth. Like you had to put cones around them, and you can lose your car in them very easily.
It's disastrous. You lose your car, and who pays for you when you're out of work, or Uber drivers or anything else? There's no fund that helps people like that. Again, it may add to people moving out of the city. So that's one part of infrastructure, but I also want to focus on the infrastructure of City Hall in general. And not only the building, but meaning how we treat people who come to City Hall. If we're truly putting the people back in power, how do we create a place where there's language justice? If we are in almost to 2026 and we still do not have agendas that are printed in Spanish for people, we have a Vietnamese population, agendas that are not printed in Vietnamese. We don't have agendas that are in larger print for people who are visually disabled. We don't have a sign language, all of that. It doesn't make any sense to me. So there's things within City Hall that need to be changed as well too. But on the streets, we need to have more contractors that can do the work. We need to have more Department of Public Works employees. People are always amazed by when I tell them that the city of Gretna has about 300 Department of Public Works employees. Mm-hmm. The city of New Orleans has 75.
Wow.
That doesn't make any sense.
How many times bigger than Gretna? I mean,
exactly. They figured something out that we have not figured out. We need to get people employed. We need to give them training. For example, the city of New Orleans has one electrician, and we has one electrician. And because of that, I went to a library in New Orleans East that is shut down because they don't have power. It's not energy is not the problem when they don't have power. It's an electrical issue, but we don't have an electrician that can fix it. I've been to senior centers that are having problems with their HVAC systems. We don't have people that are employed by the city that have the skills to be able to fix these issues, and they should. This would also give young people good quality jobs.
Yes,
if we train them in those sorts of vocations.
And not just that. I mean, actually, those should be good quality jobs, like you say. And a part of that is, and this is something that's been developing over the past several years, is a contract for city employees, recognition of the union, and that's one way to guarantee that those jobs are good. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many great unions that are doing tremendous work. And those unions have apprenticeship programs, which are amazing programs that we should be supporting them in whatever ways we can to say we want to work hand in glove with you so that you will teach young people how to have these skills, and then we'll give them a guaranteed job making better than a livable wage that has ultimately incredible benefits and insurance. We can guarantee people jobs who are formerly incarcerated, and through our work with the unions and the training benefits that they offer to people. I was at City Hall, it must have been about a couple of months ago, and we were talking about the protected status for the formerly incarcerated to ensure that there's no discrimination against them when they go for jobs. A young lady,
I remember that. Yeah.
A young lady got up and spoke, and she said, even though this, I have some protected status that has been put in, when they asked me why I don't have a work history from this point in time to this point in time, she said, the gig is up, and I don't get the job. I thought to myself at that moment, Jeff, if she's telling City Hall, if she's telling city council members sitting on that dais that she can't find a job. Why did she have to leave City Hall that day without a job? It should have been. It should have been everybody on that council should have been compelled at that moment to say, we're going to get you a job. We're going to figure out what department we can put you in so that you can support your family. Yeah. And that problem could have been solved that day.
Yeah, that's something that really is a huge moral issue, even too. Like if our criminal penalty, penal system or whatever is supposed to be designed to, give people back into society and make it so that they can live their lives. We need to make it so that they can actually do that. And, by them not being able to get a job because of their history, not anything to do with their qualifications, but their history, that makes it more likely, not less likely, they would go back to prison for whatever. That adds to recidivism. And that's something like, even if you obviously we do care about these people, but even if you didn't, if you wanted those recidivism numbers down, if you were a machine or whatever to make those kind of calculations, you would make the calculation that the one way to make sure that this person doesn't go back to jail if they have a good job and they have less precarious safe housing. And over and over again in this city, we've chosen, instead of providing these very basic needs for people, we've decided to just up the level of criminalization of things, criminalizing homelessness, criminalizing, any kind of basically activities that are very easily tiable to, lower socioeconomic status, and essentially criminalizing that, putting them in jail and being like, boom, we solved the problem.
Absolutely. And a part of that too is criminalizing being mentally ill.
Yes.
And we put people who are struggling with mental illnesses in jail as well too. And this should not be the case. As I tell people all the time, we are not, again, going back to not being fully recovered from the pandemic. We went through a global pandemic and we just continue to be resilient, which is a good and bad word, and tell people to be resilient, move on. We're okay. We are not okay. People are not okay. They're still dealing with the trauma that they have not been permitted to talk about. And so therefore we need to invest in mental health treatment to a fuller scale within our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we could sort of move along unless there's anything else you want to talk about as far as the platform stuff, but we can move on a little bit to just sort of how the campaign's going, who has shown support for you, what has it been like, just sort of like getting out there and talking to folks, and what have you seen?
Yeah, I'm just gonna be frank too, if I can. So much of it is it's interesting when you're running against a career politician who's part of the machine, who's got those family ties, whose parents have been in office, whose brothers have been, in that world of being civil servants and whatnot, and criminal and law enforcement and lawyers. When you're in that world, you see a lot of people, and from the very beginning, I've seen a lot of people who are afraid. They're frankly afraid to step out and to support a new candidate because they're afraid of retaliation. How is the incumbent going to react if he finds out that I supported you? And if I've got business before the council, he may not go my way, or if I've got a 501c3, a non-for-profit, he may not see that I get some of that cultural fund that I've been supporting my organization by. And
which, by the way, is like anticipation of abuse of power, essentially.
Absolutely. Jeff, I don't ever want anybody to ever think of me that way. I don't want anybody to ever think that I'm going to act in a retaliatory way against them because they did not do something that I wanted them to do. We have a free will. If a person wants to not vote for me, then that's fine, but I'm not going to take it out on them. But that's what I've seen. But yet and still, this campaign has just been amazing. I've talked to so many people that have. One person said to me, she said, "Pastor, I am both thankful and hopeful right now." She said that after, Jeff, I got the Orleans Parish Democratic Executive Committee endorsement. I beat the incumbent for that. Nobody could believe that.
How'd you pull that off? That's wild.
Oh man, it was probably one of the most memorable moments of my life that I will never forget. And it just showed that the people are on our side. At first, when I got the IWO, which was a dual endorsement, independent women's organization, everybody thought that was amazing. Then when I got the Democratic endorsement, they thought that was even more amazing. But it just shows that the people want this, that they do feel thankful and hopeful, and that they see a change coming, and they see a new energy coming from myself in this campaign that they have not seen before. So everywhere I go, I feel that same sort of excitement, and people are just they're tired, Jeff. They're tired of the bickering, the constant conflict, the disunity, the dysfunctionality between the council and the administration of the mayor's office, and they see that it's gotten us nowhere. We've been literally stuck in the mud, and we need to move forward.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that political culture that you mentioned a little bit ago, the sort of vindictiveness, and it's part of a broader something you're seeing across the country. I mean, like I remember, even nationally, and sorry to do this, but my brain just goes into these places. But this specifically, I'm thinking of like 2016. And you hear it all the way up through today, but like after Donald Trump won the election nationally for president in 2016, in 2017, like early in the year, I think like somewhere in North Carolina started having floods, and you would just see these like high level political figures and media figures say like, "Well, guess they should have voted for the Democrat," right? And it's just like, what are you talking about? These people are, and you're talking about something very similar when it comes to these sort of like political favors and backtracking, and quite the opposite. Like those are all connected to a like I don't want to be like, oh, bipartisan or whatever, but like you need to make sure that like when you're doing these kinds of things, you're dealing with people and it's not politicized in the same way, because that's just not how it works. That's not how it. That's not, you're not doing your job if you're doing it that way.
That's right. That's right. People should not be afraid of federal funds being withdrawn if you vote a certain way, or if you if you
or having your city be had the National Guard sent to your city because your city goes Democrat or whatever.
That's right. That's right. Now, at the same token, people have to realize that in a different way, elections have consequences. So at the same rate, we have to encourage our people that you do have to vote, and you do have to vote for change and not the status quo that we've been seeing.
You can offer something. You can't be like, don't vote for them or it's going to get bad. What are we going to give you? Nothing.
That's right. Exactly.
We've tried nothing, man. We're all out of ideas, man.
Right. And and do your research. One of my opponents says, don't vote for the name because you won't get any change, or you'll get the same, something like that. I thought, well, that's really good. My name Manning is a great name. I always say that. But a great name for the city of New Orleans. It's very timely to run with a name like Manning. But so often we do go and we're like, oh, Morrell, I recognize that name. No, look, study this man. See where his money's coming from. See the fact that he is heavily funded by corporations, by PACs, by lobbyists, to the tune, Jeff, that his average donation is $2,500. And my average donation is $100. We have twice as many individual donors, meaning just everyday people than he has. He's funded by members of the Republican Party who are Trump supporters, and he's even received money from AT&T, which is against the law, because of an ordinance that I helped get passed and fought for, that any city council member that is sitting or running, any candidate running for office, cannot take campaign contributions from any entity that it regulates. My opponent took money from AT&T and is unapologetic about it.
Yeah. Another question I want. Let's pause for station ID. WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. Good morning, comrade. Pastor Gregory Manning joining us, running for City Council at Large Division 2. A part of that also is getting in front of people, talking to people, getting at the doors, and building a network of support so that you can you can, I mean, obviously, you know, if it's going to be a grassroots people run campaign, you're going to need volunteers. You're going to need organizations that are supportive. Talk about who has supported this campaign and what it's been like in terms of getting that, building the coalition, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's a little dangerous, Jeff, when you start mentioning names and organizations, and you're like, oh man, I hope I don't leave anybody out. But there are some, and so I'll say that as a caveat. But I also want to just mention some organizations and networks and groups of people that have been extremely supportive and been boots on the ground for us, and that is the Nurses Union. That has been fighting for first contracts with UMC.
They're so awesome. They are so
awesome. I'm so proud of them, Jeff. And I've been with them from the very beginning. When they started, I was at their first organizational meeting at Grace United Methodist Church, and I've been moving and working with them from the beginning. They support me. I support them. And they actually been out in the field canvassing for our campaign and just showing up for me in a very, very big way. So then big shout out to the Nurses Union. Shout out to Step Up Louisiana for Action. They just solely endorsed me as well, too. They put in place the Workers' Bill of Rights, do so much incredible work that I've been able to work alongside them with. So I'm just thrilled to just be able to engage with them. And so those are just a few Democratic Socialists of America that's so proud of their platform and the fact that they endorsed me as well too. I think I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by the Democratic Party and the Democratic Socialists.
Yeah. And just a couple others. Yeah. OPTEC, DSA, they're right next to each other on your website, which is hilarious.
Yes.
Sunrise Movement, independent women's organization. We locally, you mentioned Step Up Action. Mandy Landry, friend of the show, multiple-time guest. We love Mandy around here. Gabby, we love Gabby, multiple-time guest as well. City Council. I'm sorry,
Levine.
Board.
Yes.
I beg your pardon.
Sharon Levine.
Cheryl Levine, Devin Davis. There's a lot of support is really poured out in the campaign. And has that really translated into a canvassing operation that can be sustainable and make this campaign viable?
Absolutely. You know, this is all about going out and meeting people. You know, so these folks are all canvassing for us. Lead Locally they've hired three canvassers for us that are out in the field all week long, doing work and knocking on doors. It's those touches where people can be introduced to me at their homes, which is great. And everywhere we go, people are very excited. They're not excited about the status quo and the machine. They're excited about change. And as I knock on doors, even on Saturday, I was out for 4 hours in New Orleans East knocking on doors. And one woman said, "You got my vote. You are here in the heat." She said, "Any candidate that knocks on my door in this heat, you've got my vote." So
it's still hot out there.
Yes.
But yeah, it really is. You cannot win a campaign at the local level, especially at any level, but especially the local level, without getting in front of people, without getting to the doors, without talking to people, and without sort of like having at least some kind of a army of volunteers to get out there, to talk, to have conversations, to just get the word out there. Because a lot of people, the reason that they don't vote, and unfortunately, this is very often, tied to just how disempowering our political system is, in not just locally, but just state, local, national level. It's just a extremely disempowering system that turns people off, and people don't vote because of that. But when you get to talk to people, when you can actually convince them, talk to them, convince them, hear them out, and you can essentially get them to go like, okay, fine, I'll vote for you. That's great. Even if they're not totally like, if you can just get them to hear what you're saying, you can get them out there, and you can make a big difference.
I've seen that totally along the whole way, that people, once they hear about the platform, once they hear about this is about putting people back in power, putting people above profit, when they hear about utility justice, housing justice, they're all for it. And so it's a lot of door knocking. It's a lot of getting groups together. I am so blessed, Jeff, that people let me speak at rallies, even if I'm not on the schedule or the list of speakers. If they see that I'm there, they'll welcome me to be able to speak and just to be able to convey the message for people and to get them excited is just an awesome thing. So a lot of visiting churches. I go to 3 to 4, sometimes 5 churches on a Sunday, whether it's a Vietnamese church, a Hispanic church, a Black church, a white church. I go there and let them hear my voice and let them know that now is the time for change.
Yeah, you got to get up there, and New Orleans is an extremely diverse city in that way, and you need to find every group of people, every every church, synagogue, mosque, whatever, and just make sure that you're talking to whoever it is that you can, just to get your message out. It's so important.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that too, yeah, because I have visited mosques. I did an interview with a Jewish rabbi the other day as well too. But that all is an example of how we cross along lines, how we build collaboration, and to say, it's not only my desire to visit with you on a Sunday or a Friday or whatever else, or a Saturday. It is my desire that we would work together in a continued fashion, learning from each other and just being collaborative in all that we do. Not letting religion separate us, socioeconomic status separate us, ethnicity separate us. It's all hands on deck with all of these issues that we're facing right now.
Yeah, and I constantly say this. I mean, if you look at the working class in not just New Orleans, but any city, and even more broadly, like the part of what the ruling class uses to divide us is these sort of like identities and religions and all these other things. But like when you look at it, the working class is extremely diverse. The working class is the most diverse class. We need to make sure that we're including everybody, because without all of us involved in it, without all of us being a part of it, then we're worse for that. Every time that every group that we exclude or whatever, we're weaker for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a tactic that is in nothing new.
It's age old. It's as old as the rain.
That's right. As I say, as the scripture says in my faith, a house divided cannot stand.
Yeah.
So we got to bring unity to people.
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to sort of touch on that we didn't quite get to yet?
Here's one of the things that I want to just let people know is that we need to have a city council member that is accessible to people. For a while now, I've seen my opponent, who has been very conflictual with people. I think that there's a way that we can disagree, but we don't have to disrespect. We can hold each other up and hold each other accountable, but at the same time, assume the best in everyone, and we can build bridges between the administration and between the council. And that's my goal, is to be accessible, to show up for you, to fight for you. As I always say, Jeff, to fight for you and never with you or against you, to be your advocate and never your adversary. And look, this is a people-powered campaign. This is about putting the people back at City Hall, in the city council chambers. So I need your help. I need for people who are going to become one of our many volunteers, contributors to this campaign. Every dollar counts. Every voice is important. My campaign website is Manning4change.com. MANNING, for either the number 4, the word 4, change.com. We would love to have you on the Manning team. I always say a Manning in any shade is still a champion. We've got a lot of Manning champions here in the city of New Orleans, and I'll leave it all out on the field for you. So you like that?
Yeah. I like it. They can't do nothing about it because that's your name.
That's my name.
Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. And good luck in the campaign. Obviously, if anyone from any of the other campaigns in the city are listening, please do reach out to the station, WHIV. We can definitely make provisions to get equal airtime for everyone. But yeah, definitely awesome talking to you, Pastor Manning. Really do appreciate it, and thank you to everybody for listening to Good Morning Comrade. This is WHIV LP New Orleans. We love you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Thanks.